Good afternoon, everybody. Bobby Cleveland, Oklahoma Corrections Professionals, along with our special, not a guest anymore. She's a full timer, Julie Thompson. Welcome, Julie. She has brought a bright
Hello.
light to us, and then we have the furry JJ Humphrey.
Yeah,
Oh,
furry Hispanic. Boy, I've made Hispanics mad and furries mad this week, Bob. Yeah,
Well,
unbelievable. But I think I got the Hispanic issue straightened out, but furries are still mad at me. But we got too much talk about corrections and talk about furries, Bob.
let's talk about. There's something I want to talk about because I've been giving you some thought because I listened to the director's talk again at the budget meeting, and he never mentioned one thing about shortage of officers. Never brought that up. Do they has they you ever heard a plan that they actually have? Do they have a plan?
Bob, here's part of at anything, whether you're alcoholic, substance abuse, whatever. Your first step is to admit you got a problem. Number one problem in corrections, and that's what you do. Is if you're in leadership, you identify your problems before you can address them. You got to identify them. You got to kind of figure out what's your number one problem. And again, their number one problem is their shortage of staff. I applaud their efforts to get new computerized equipment, new video equipment. I applaud that. That's fine, but that's not what they ought to be focusing on right now. The focus should be on the shortage of staff. And again, no, they didn't even address that. And the other problem, Bob, and you know this to be true, is trying to get a straight answer. When we first started 3 years ago, how many are you short? Guess what? 3 months, could not get an answer. Got the wrong answer when we finally did get an answer. Had to go 6 more months to prove that that was not a true answer. And so again, trying to get a valid answer. Bob, you understand this. Julie, you'll understand it. And Julie, you might could even add a little insight that I don't, but pins are the positions that they talk about and what they justify their positions. And so what happens at every one of these prisons, if you went back and looked 4 years ago, you might have 20, 30, 40 more pins. In some cases, I've seen as much as 90 pins. And so what they come in and do and say, well, you don't need these pins anymore, and they take them off. So where you may have had 236 to run the prison, now you have 151 or something like that. And nobody knows. So when a legislator goes in and pulls that up and says, well, how many people are you supposed to have at that prison? Well, 151. Okay, it looks like, well, you got 145, you're 7 short or 6 short or whatever that is. You're 6 short. Well, that looks not so bad. But in reality, they're 90 something short. You know what I mean? From where they were. And again, you got to look at.
Are you saying, JJ, that you can't believe their numbers?
I'm saying, Bob, that it's with the capital L. When I say liars, it's with the capital L. Lars, Lars, Bob.
I was going to say, I remember when they did this, when they came in, wardens were furious, especially for the correctional officers, because JJ, you're absolutely right. They came in and whatever you had as vacancies, they pulled those pins. Well, then if you look at the math, oh yeah, the math looks great. We don't have that many vacancies. Where might have before, you might have only had 50% of your pins filled. Now the numbers, right. We used to joke and call it DOC math is what we called it.
Oh,
well, that's what we call it too.
And I understand DOC. I worked for them for 20 years, so I really do understand DOC math. And there's a method to their madness, and that's always to cheat everybody else and do it to their side. But the thing about it is what's bad. We should be able to look immediately at a prison and say, this is how many officers you're down. If they would leave that pins at that prison, meaning just call them unfilled positions. These are unfilled pins, so that we can immediately look over there and say, hey, that prison should have 200 officers running that prison. 200 officers ought to be working, and you're at 150. Okay, we're 150 down. That's easy math. But here's the thing, and Bob knows this, and Julie, I figure you do as well. that's fine when they take those pins and say, we no longer need those pins over that prison. And then that prison's trying to justify getting them back. Okay. But did they call the legislators and say, oh, guess what? We did away with 900 positions. And so we don't need that money anymore for those 900 positions. I'm going to bet you they didn't do that. What do you want?
Well, now I see where they need that money at. They're moving to a higher rental place. It's costing more money. And, but you know, I remember when they took those pins away, they didn't even have the courtesy to tell the wardens that they were taken. They just took them away. But I can say about
some of them almost found out by accident. Like some of them just were running reports and found out by accident. Like how sad is that nobody gives you the heads up?
Yeah. Right. Well, I know maybe 2 years ago I was at a prison and I asked the warden, and there's a warden and the deputy warden sitting in there, and I asked the warden, I said, how short are you guys? And I already walked around and noticed it was pretty short. Oh, we're only 3 people down. I said, no, you're not. You're 30 down. Well, why do you say that? I said, because I asked the deputy warden, I said, how many are you down? He said, we need about 30 more people, 40. And so, I mean, you can't get the truth out of these people.
Bob, and you mentioned a while ago, you know, headquarters. And I don't have a problem with having a nice looking facility and being proud of your facility. I have zero problem with that. But again, I think the problem that we're talking about, when you have the shortage and when you have the violence that is occurring and when you have the situations that we're talking about that are so horrific, I mean, horrific problems. And then they want to look at, let's go over here and get a new headquarters and concentrate on all that, spend that money on that. And then what I got a big kick out of, Bob, they come back and said, I'm critical on everything. They kind of, I don't know if you saw that, they smacked my name around a little bit. They said that I was just critical and I always was down on them. And only because there's so much to be down on, you know. I am critical. I do want to say, Director, if you're watching, you got so much to criticize. I really think I'm pretty kind to you. I think I'm pretty nice. I haven't really come out and really raked the spur on you like you should have raked on you. You got a lot of things that are just massively unbelievable wrong. People getting killed, people getting raped, people getting beaten, people sending in video. And you're saying that is only a...
hold it, JJ. Hold just a second. You got inmates calling 911 for help.
It's an isolated incident, Bob. That's an isolated incident, what they said. You know what, Bob? Julie, I don't know if Bob told you this, but, you know, we come out and we said the 911 guy, we talked about the guy getting beaten and tattooed void on his head and sent to his parents. That's unbelievable. That'll tell you how bad things are. But we also talked about an inmate that got killed back in October, we believe, stabbed about 70 times, stabbed 8 times in the throat, and almost had his head severed, stuffed in the trash can, and wasn't found for 7 or 8 hours, which will tell you somebody's not doing counts. Absolutely. And again, we have all of these issues that we know. If people know prisons, like you just said that, you know, well, they're violating a massive, and nobody says nothing about that. You know, nobody gets fired on that, you know, but now if you go down there and something happens, we'll fire you, you know. Is that not unbelievable?
I have a problem with spending a lot on pomp and circumstance when it comes to like he has his new uniform that he wears to graduations. Now they're having the deputies and the wardens have them. And the quote I received from somebody was that it's $1,100 per uniform for deputies and wardens to wear to these graduations. That I talked to one person, they're like, we might wear it maybe twice a year. Yeah,
$25,000.
Well, and their employees, Julie, their employees are offended at Harp wearing that uniform because he's never been in uniform. He has not been. And again, I think that having, I applaud him for wanting to make a better image, to make a better view. But again, put on a blazer, get a blazer that says DOC and shows you're the administration. Have a classy looking deal. Separate yourself. And if you want to make everybody an officer, then let's put everybody in security and give everybody the same raises. We're all in there together. We're all security. We're all prison. Let's make everybody a part of that team and declare everybody no more important than others. We're all your job. I can move you over here if we need to move you over here. You're part of the same team. You have your duties, but if we need you today to change a little bit, you can. That's what they should be pushing.
I just have an issue with the fact that we're going to spend $1,100 per uniform. So deputy and warden, so for each facility is $2,200. I mean, you're looking over $45,000 that you're going to spend on that.
It's ridiculous that they can spend money on that. They can spend money on the with their attorneys of appealing. They can do that because you know what? It's not their money. It's the state's money. They don't care. If it's his money, I bet you wouldn't have happened. But they spend money like it's thrown into it.
I'm not bragging here. I spent thousands when I worked for DOC between food, equipment, things like that. But I was always told to be frugal. That is taxpayers' dollars. You better do your job and use that money wisely. That was the lessons that were imprinted in me.
You know why you were told that? Be frugal. Integrity? So you can create more of a budget that we can play with. That's the deal. You save money on feeding them inmates, and we'll find some really cool uniforms that make us look really cool and we think is great. We'll drive
I've said this 100 times. I've said this 100 times. You can put lipstick on a hog, you still got a hog.
Well, but now they want to drive really classy cars. They want to have really cool weapons. And again, here's what's funny. Half the ones that got that don't even use it. You know what I'm saying? They're not in guns, and the people who do need it can't get it.
Julie, you got to just butt in there, Julie.
I know I got a barrel, JJ. I was informed that, and this is the numbers that were thrown out to me, $100,000 on a sniper team that they've never used. $100,000. Can we spend that on retention and recruitment? What are we?
Well, and again, I got on them. Where's the equipment? And some of the equipment seemed gone, and other things. Hey, they need a sniper team, but what do, Julie? They go out and get somebody who knows absolutely nothing about being sniper or qualified, and that's who runs their stuff. And then the guys that do know about it, they won't listen to, they don't want to hear. And when they come and go, hey, this ain't the way you do it. This can't work. Shut up. We don't want to hear that. And then all of a sudden, guess what? It's disbanded when you need a sniper team. Now, do we have to spend that much money? Absolutely not. I mean, we can get weapons. You can buy a gun for about $4,000. You can outfit, if you outfitted each person at $5,000 or $6,000, they only got like 10 people, 10 or 12 people on the team. You spend $100,000. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to spend, but then they need to practice. They need to go to facility, and you need to let those people do what they know to do. You don't need some guy that don't know jack telling them how they need to qualify.
Let's go back to a plan.
Sorry, we got off topic there, Bobby.
We're going to go back to the plan.
Bob, what's your plan?
We need a plan of how we're going to, not just that we're going to increase academy, we're going to go 67 weeks or whatever, but a plan on how to keep the guy after he graduates and goes to the prison. They're leaving. More than half of them
Bob, the question, and in 3 years I've said this: what is your plan to recruit people? And there's a 2 or 3 step that they're going to have to do, and one they can't. They have no idea. They talk culture because they've heard us say culture, but they don't get they're the culture. They are the culture. They are what we're talking about. You cannot hostilely treat your employees and expect your employees to go out and recruit people for you. You can't run everybody off and then expect that those people
fire everybody like they do, and they make it so difficult for you. You want to quit because they intimidate you.
So one. Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
I did a news interview just this last week. Gave a news interview, And the interviewer point blank asked me, they're like, do you think you have PTSD from working for DOC? And I said, I know I do. I
Right.
absolutely know I do. And
Well,
yeah, you're right. So why do you want to stay?
Julie, let me ask you a question. I ask a lot of employees. You know, who was your number one problem? Was it the inmates or was it the administration? Who did you have your main problems from?
My main problem is administration, and it was lack of communication. Like
There's no, it's
just
not even
overall
no.
lack of communication. It was expected. I was expected to communicate up, but nothing ever came down.
Well,
and we were sitting in the dark.
And when you ask a correctional officer that, probation officers, I've never asked any one of those, who do you have your main problem from? They'll quickly tell you administration. I way more fear the administration than I do the inmates. Now, I think because of the situation, that is changing a little bit. I think people are now fearing to go to work because the place has become so hostile, gaslit. But again, until they address that, if they won't address that issue, they're going to have a hard time getting people in. There's some other things, Bob.
You can't address it if you deny it.
100%. But we're not. I don't feel like they're ever going to admit to it. I don't feel like he's going to admit that he's wrong. Just like he was never going to. He wasn't going to meet with me because I can't tell you his reasonings, but I think it was because otherwise he would have had to admit he was wrong. And I don't think he's willing to admit he's wrong.
Well, Julie, don't feel bad because he didn't meet anybody else. Because I've heard this story numbers of times. They get an appointment and then they cancel it, and thinking they're going to go see him, and then they don't. So it's not just you.
Well, and here's the deal. The other day in his response to the budget hearing, he was kind of talking about me being so critical, always being negative. What's funny, I can't tell you in the last, really, Julie, how long ago was your first time coming on here? Was that 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
I would tell you, you have inspired lots of people because in that 3 week period of time, I have gotten more calls from all kinds of parents, people who have someone in prison, employees, all kinds of people. And what is unbelievable, the level of employees. Now, I may not have them call me directly, but I may get an indirect call from high ranking levels in the prison system saying it is out of control. Something's got to be done. We are in emergency crisis. I mean, it's just, and it ain't one. I mean, it is not one. It is overwhelming the amount of calls I'm receiving.
Well, this group of people now that taking over, this group that we have right now, it's terrible. What's happening there? We got people quitting. It's been there a long time. That we've got a lot of long timers, 15, 20 years. We got guys that's been there 21 years and decided to leave. He just couldn't go and take it anymore. And he wouldn't.
Yeah, Bob, when you got a guy that's on a 20-year retirement system and he's at 18 and he's talking about leaving, let me tell you something. There's something grotesquely wrong when a man that's worked 18 years for you will think about dropping that full retirement over 2 years. You know what I'm saying? That'll tell you that you got a massive problem. And again,
how unbearable is it if they're willing to leave early? How unbearable is it for them?
Well, and what's crazy, Julie, is they will not even bad night. We'll leave. That's their attitude. If you don't like it here, leave. Well, that's fine if you've got a lot of extra employees and you got a choice. But guess what? When you're down to critical staffing levels, below critical staffing levels, and you still got that same attitude, then that's a massive, massive problem.
Hey, JJ, what do you think about the deal on the academy where they don't get to go to the prison until after academy?
Well, I think that number one, if it was me, I bring people in. That's the way when I showed up, I had worked there maybe a month before I went to academy. I knew what to expect. I knew what the system was kind of like. I knew what I was getting myself into. So you don't waste your money on me going to the academy and then coming back and quit. Plus, if you'd have sent me straight up to the academy, I wouldn't even know what you were talking about when you were trying
They have
to.
no reference point.
Yeah, I'd be like, what are y'all talking about? What are you? So here's the deal, Bob. It wasn't just the CO Academy. When I went through PO Academy, the same way. I went probation. I worked there for quite some time. I worked with other employees, and I will tell you, I love the fact I enjoyed my time at both academies. I think I gleaned a lot. I think we had a lot of great discussion. But I can tell you where I learned the most is right there with other employees, and that's something that's not being talked about, Bob. We're losing our experience. When I was there, if you made lieutenant, crud, you probably had 10 years. You didn't hear about a lieutenant 4 years, 3 years. That was unheard of. Now you're hearing captains that are 4 years, young people. Guess what? You're losing experience, but you're also losing something that nobody talks about. It's hard to kind of explain, but there's a presence when you've had 20 years experience. There's a presence. Most people who jump on me realize real quick, I don't have a lot of reverse, okay? They realize, hey, if you punch that little boy too much, that little fat man will get in your eyes real quick, okay? They know that because there's a presence. I don't have to tell them that you can look in my eyes and figure that out pretty quick, you know? So there's a presence about that you don't have to proclaim. And when these guys are promoted to these levels and they don't have the experience, they don't have the confidence, they don't have that presence. Again, when they go down to solve problems, the inmates see it, their employees see it. The employees won't have as much confidence. We're losing all of that, how to handle critical situations. The experience is critical. And again, there's a way to get that back too, Bob. There's a way to get that back. And again, they just don't have a plan because they're not as familiar, I don't think, with the whole system. And when I mean by the whole system, how to reach out, how to inspire people, how to bring people back, how to bring those people that could really change the whole environment back pretty quickly. And it can be done. I believe it can be done. Now, Bob, that's easy to say with us sitting here, you know what I'm saying? But I'm pretty confident.
It's going to take work. It's going to take grit. It's going to take determination. It's going to take some doors in your face to be able to do it. 110%. But it's possible. And if by building up a team of people, you also have to be able to be invested in those people. You can't just expect them to come through the door. You have to be invested in their well-being, mind, body, and soul. And whether or not they choose to make a career, okay, but you still have to be invested in those people.
Well, Julie, I used to tell people that you couldn't beat me, 1 foot hardly, but I'd follow you off a building, or I'll follow you anywhere. You know what I mean? That's leadership. It's not you go out there and do it. You sorry sucker, you didn't do it. Shut up. I don't want to hear from you. It is, I'm right in the ditch with you. It is, we're hand in hand. I'm listening to you. You got a good point. I got a good point. We agree. I just filed a bill where 100,000 people, I made everybody mad, unbelievable. And now I'm getting static for backing up on it and changing a little bit. I don't care about the static either way, but here's the deal. You got to be able to hear, and if they're right. Now, if they're wrong, stand your ground and say, y'all's wrong. But if they're right, being able to do what you said a while ago, which very, especially in the political world, and they are in the political world, this is a government agency. They don't want to say I was wrong, or I could have worded that better, or this is a better approach. Let me change that. Guess what? That shows character. That shows okay.
Hey, how often do you think in the last 5 years did we see a inmate video other inmate beating up an inmate?
Bob, I've been 30. We can go back 35 years. I've been involved in corrections and probation and drug court and all of this. I've always stayed very closely entwined with DOC, and in 35 years, I have never heard of an inmate calling 911 to come save me at the prison. I have never heard of inmates being so bold as to videotape their cells beating a person. And Bob, people don't get this. Julie will understand this. you don't have a tattoo artist in prison like you don't have the tattoo parlor down here. They have to make a tattoo gun.
Mhm.
So it's
Tattoo
not
gun.
like they can order it off of Amazon, okay? So they have to make a tattoo gun and they have to dip it in ink and stuff like that. It's not, you know what I'm saying? And so
Unless you get a ship. I mean, unless you get a
yeah,
package.
you can
and
get it in and that, but that's unlikely. Most of them are homemade.
But the time that it takes you to get a tattoo like that.
That's what I'm saying. They said, well, the beating, it took us 45 minutes to find him. I'm going, well, is that 45 minutes after he got the hell beat out of him and after he got his head tattooed? Or is that 45 minutes, including the hour that they took to video? Because if you look at video, Void is not little bitty Void. It is a big Void, big black. So to get that much ink in there, it's going to take some time. Now, I don't know how much time it took, but it ain't going to be done this snap of a finger.
That was done. That whole thing started like about 5 a.m. Okay. At 5 a.m., they are supposed to be counting every hour at night.
Well, and here's the thing too. If they are so brass to be willing to do that and they know that they have the time, that tells me that something's been going on that's been happening prior, that they felt comfortable enough that they felt like they had enough time.
Yeah,
and to deal with inmates, they will try little things and try to see, oh, did you catch on to that? Okay, we're going to go a little bit further next time. Okay, you didn't catch on to that one. We're going to go a little further. They add up. So the fact that they were so brass and willing to do this, that there's a huge problem there.
Yeah, well, it didn't take them just 5 minutes to do that, beat that guy, and they had seen no officer at all come around. And I don't buy what they're saying that the officer was paid off. I think it's because they're so short-handed, they skip. Now here's what happened. Here's what's happening though, JJ. JJ, just a second, buddy. Let me get something in here. I forgot what I was going to say. Go ahead, JJ.
Sorry, Bobby.
I'll help you out, Bob. Here's the deal, though. Me and Bob met with the sister of this inmate, and we were told that inmate was beaten just days before this.
2 days.
Now here's the deal. If an inmate is beaten, they should know to get that inmate off the yard. So it's possible he got beaten and they didn't know about it. But a day later or so, he gets stabbed in the knee and has to be taken to medical. So you got an inmate who was beaten, stabbed. That inmate should have been taken out of that facility and protected. Instead, we find this beating going on, 8 people. You know, I mean, how do you have, that's pretty noisy generally. And again, 8 people moving around on a unit and nobody sees them. They go down there and take the time. And like you say, it escalates. This is going on. And for them to send that video to the parents with their faces, and a lot of them, you make them out even if they got their back turned. For them to do that, it verifies just how out of control and how they don't care. How the inmates, the patients are running the hospital. The inmates are taking over, and that's obvious by that video.
Well, the bottom line is, though, when they say they got there within 45 minutes, I don't believe that 1 minute, especially what we've heard from the sister who talked to her brother. But that was loud, like you're saying, and you know, in the cell in there, you can hear up and down there real good because they were yelling at the guy, yelling at all along. So I bet you they spent 20 minutes beating the heck out of that guy, maybe 30. But where are other guards? They're short-handed. The place has been mismanaged. They don't have the officers to take care of stuff, and they want to spend their time on figuring out how to put a bunch of computers in, and they put good cameras into where they're at and get a few more cameras. That would help before they do anything else. But
and I want to take a moment and say that we are not blaming the officers.
No, it's not their fault.
We're not blaming them for being short staffed. That is not on them at all.
Well, Julie, I want to take that step further. I don't want to blame the officers. I don't want to blame the employees. I don't want to blame the
absolutely
wardens.
not.
Hey, the wardens catching, the wardens catch so much flack over, hey, they're in an impossible situation. What are they supposed to do? They got to ride on the employees to try to get, I mean.
You disagree, and they'll fire you.
They're in no win. It's a no win situation.
I had one contact me. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give the person away, but a higher up facility member contacted me and said that they were worried that they would be the next one on the chopping block because they had reported something. And I made a comment. I was like, "You did your job. Why would you be worried about retaliation?" And the response is, "It's going to come back on me." I reported the issue as soon as I found out about it. I reported it, but
let's jump off here a minute. I'm going to cover this before we get going anymore. Let's talk about our bills that we've got for next year, and we got a couple more bills we want to propose. Try to get a new bill in there, and that's the one about if the inmate harms an officer, they're immediately sent off to OSP or wherever they're going to go, and they're going to have some punishment involved in it. And if they kill one, they go to the electric chair the next day.
Well, Bob,
we've got to protect these officers.
But let's make sure everybody understands that me and you talked about that after the bills have already been filed. So we got to try to come up with a slick way to slide that in some other legislation or some other bill. But we're going to attempt to do that.
Here's my question. So is it just for officers? Is it for other staff members as well?
Yeah, it'd be state employee. Yeah, it'd be an employee.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering, because I know there was a food service manager several years ago who was stabbed in a closet.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, we've had case managers. We've had other people in law libraries.
We need more bills that's going to take effect and protect these guys and women. These guys shouldn't be. They're so brazen. I mean, they use. What about the guys? The 4 inmates go into a room where the caseworker is working with the guy, and they go in there and stab him right in front of her.
Well, Bob, the one I am most excited about and hope that we can get through. And I will tell you, our own leadership has attacked this bill every time I've tried to file it, is whistleblower.
Oh, yeah.
Need to be able, like, we're sitting here talking about all of this. That person you're talking about, scared of retaliation, scared that by telling, and when you want to talk about the culture, if you can't tell somebody what's going wrong, then we're never going to fix the problem. Yeah. And so, again, they can't come forward without fear of retaliation. We have to develop a whistleblower that state employees, not just DOC, but state employees have confidence that they can come and will be protected. And we've got to get that out. And so that's number one bills that I'm going to.
What's the other bills?
Well, I've got a bill that says, here's what's funny, Bob. I get reports that when legislators or the governor or somebody goes down to Holdenville, that they hold staff over that worked that night, and they hold them over so that when we come and do a tour, that it looks like that they have full staff, and they pay those people overtime. I was told that at Great Plains, they actually took officers from one unit and would have another one on this unit, and they'd run these guys over back behind the scene. And so
I hope that's not true. I hope that's not true.
It looked like they was full. Now when they're going over to this unit, they all run around and go over here. And I'm told that was happening. So one of the things that I want is, as a legislator, I don't want their little golden tour. I want to be able to show up unannounced, walk in, see the actual gritty, what's going on. I want to be able to talk to inmates and employees without a supervisor looking over my shoulder, staring into them and saying, you better watch out, intimidate them.
I'm told that the director doesn't want to lock down anybody, doesn't want to lock down inmates when they do something wrong, doesn't want to lock them down. And that's leading to what's going on. That's why it's so much dangerous now. That's why we have people getting hit. Just recently at OSP, a guy was attacked by an inmate, and he had the cuffs on the front, and the inmate hit the officer with the cuffs. And
Right.
that's I mean, from what I can understand, that's a big deal when you get hit with handcuffs like that. Knock several teeth out. But
well, I'm hearing the same thing, Bob, that they're catering to the inmates, and especially when things are as bad as they are right now, with the violence as it is right now, that just leads to more violence. That just leads to more what we were talking about, escalation a while ago. When they get away with this, they get away with that. They're not going to stop. They're going to push the envelope. They're going to keep pushing the envelope, and they'll burn the envelope down if you'll let them. And that's where we're at right now.
I was going to say, and this sounds bad, and no, we don't want inmates policing other inmates. We don't. But you're right, though. There's a point when you use that, this is a privilege to be able to be out. So we're going to behave. We're not going to stab people. We're not going to do dumb things. We're going to behave. If you don't, then we're going to lock down for a little bit, and then we'll try to ease back up. If you give them free reign, what is that even teaching anybody? I can misbehave and do whatever, and I own the place.
There was an inmate that was attacked by other inmates and had the holy crap beat out of him. This is December the 30th. And you know what? They put one of the guys that beat this guy up, they put him across the cell from the guy that he beat up. They moved him over there across from him.
Well,
whatever happened to separate?
But when you have 5 guys to watch 1,000 or 4 guys to watch 1,400,
right?
You like to think that we would not use inmates to monitor other inmates, but guess what? When you get down to those levels, that's exactly what's happened. There's people who run that yard. We know it, whether we've got a full staff or not. There's people who control that yard, and the more you pull away from that, the more control they're going to have. And again, it'll get brutal and it'll get bad if you can't control it. And that's what's happening. They're trying to just keep some type of control, but you've got gangs and you got other people that are controlling that yard. And when it gets to that point, when the officers know that they no longer have control, and I've talked to a lot of the officers, and that is where they're at. They know that this thing could go haywire at any time. It could swarm on them at any time because they just do not have the manpower to control the situation.
Representative, there's been cases now in some of our facilities, they don't have anybody in the tower that controls that yard. And they don't have anybody on the front to control you, people coming in with the x-rays. They just do good to take care of and make the rounds. But it's interesting how they can violate so many policies. That's fine. But you
got to interrupt him and get in there.
No, but Bobby's right. His guest next, which I'm super excited about your special guest next week. I am so blown away. And I will not release his name. We will keep it secret until next week. But I'm super excited because he's going to come on and he's going to talk exactly about that, about not having people in those towers, not being able to watch the yard, not knowing if you really have all the inmates locked down at that, when you close that yard. I cannot wait for him to come on and blow it out of the water. So
well, that was something we're going to not talk about because we're going to announce it next week on a very special announcement. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to be moving forward. But you know what? We have more people now. They're starting to come forward and tell what's going on where they used to was scared, or we just has more of that. But
I think, Bob, people are coming forward because they see there's really not much choice. You know, it's do you get fired or do you stick around and have a riot, or do you they're coming forward because it's just getting to the point that they know if something is not done, things are going to get really, really bad. Or the people I talk to, they're in desperation stage. And that's what I don't get is that Director Harp is acting like, oh, they're isolated incidents. He knows they're not isolated incidents. I had a investigative reporter call on the incident at Lawton where the guy got stabbed so many times. They wouldn't give him the information. And so what he did, he called the medical examiner and said, could you tell me the inmate's name that got killed somewhere in this 6-month period? You know what the answer he got back was, Bob?
What?
6 inmates. Here's 6 inmates that got killed in that 6-month period.
1 a month.
So he narrowed it down to 6 inmates. He doesn't know which one, which we found out which one it is. But the point being that he called me back. He was excited and said, JJ, they're saying this is isolated incidents. There's 6 deaths in this one prison in 6-month period. That's 1 a month. I said, brother, listen to me. That's one prison. Expand your search. Go ask them how many people died in all prisons during that period of time. How about all died in 1 year? It'll double, it'll triple. And again, we're not talking about stabbings. We're not talking about rapes. We're talking about murder. We're talking about death. And the question is, are these being worked?
What about the ones that are dying from opioids or
Oh, absolutely, Bob. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If we start looking into opioid deaths and you know, ODs and all that, hey, how many are we talking about?
how many of them could have been saved and got in there in time with that little, what's that can called?
Narcan.
Narcan. If they could have got in there faster and saved that life. But we're so short-handed, they can't do that.
Here's the thing, too, about Narcan. And I'm going to say this because I am a first responder. I'm an EMT, part-time only. But here's the thing about Narcan. It takes so many doses sometimes on people. And if they have had a lot, I know from previous times of looking at incident reports or SIRs, they would give 5, 6 syringes of Narcan. That's a lot to have on hand. I mean, especially when
you're
they're having
saying
to run
takes
from
that
one
many
unit to
cans
another.
on one person?
Well, it's a spray that you spray up their nose. It's
Okay.
a mist that you spray up their nose, but it's a syringe and you push it up there. But it's taking 5 to 6 vials on some of these, depending on how much you take.
Yeah.
So that's just it. If you only have 2 of those on a unit, you're going to have to run to another unit. You're running to be able to keep that inmate alive.
Absolutely. But here's the thing that I just think, and Director, if you're watching this is going to come back and bite you. I'm going to tell you, this is going to come back and bite you. You going out in the public and you're saying, oh, JJ's crazy. JJ's an idiot. It's isolated incidents. He's naming 1 or 2 isolated incidents. And then it comes out that you personally know all of these deaths, all of these stabbings, all of these assaults. You know what you're saying is not true. Do you have a duty to come out and tell the public, tell the legislators, yes, this is true? And I'm going to tell you this. I can tell you this. I may be crazy. I may be a moron, but I go forward. And once I'm lashed in, I'm lashed in. And I'll guarantee you it is going to come out. What is happening is going to come out. And it is coming out. It is now coming out. You're hearing more and more people come forward. You can't keep this secret. It is time to come out and declare that we're in a crisis, declare the actual truth, what is going on. Come clean, do the right thing, come clean. You'll look a whole lot better. If you sit back and try to deny it, you're going to look like what you've been calling me and Bob. You're going to look like the clown. Those words are going to come back and bite you right on the butt. Y'all are going to look like clowns when this comes out. You better come out and start telling the truth.
Well, Director Hart's really big on statistics and data. He's really big on it. So I would love to see the statistics of how many inmate on inmate assaults are we having compared to previously. How many inmate on.
Well, you can't believe anything they do, Julie. You can't, even when they give you the numbers, you can't believe it because you know.
I know that DOC math, it gets you every time.
Yeah, there's ways. Here's what I'm trying to do, Bob. And I'll openly tell them, you generally don't tell a guy that I'm going to hit you. You just hit him in a fight. But here's the deal. I'll tell you how I'm going to hit you. I'm going to ask you, and I've got it. I've already got it prepared, and I'm sending it to you to say, hey, these are things that I want to get clarified that I wasn't allowed to in the budget meeting. I got cut short on time. I figured because they called the governor and had me kind of quieted down. But that's okay because I'm going to put it in writing to you, make it public. And again, I'll tell you what I'm
Well, he didn't tell the truth when he was up there in that budget.
Well, Bob, here's the deal. I want you to put it in writing. I'm going to get it in writing what y'all say, just so I can go back. I've got ways I can verify. I've got all kinds of ways to verify those numbers, and I want you to go on paper and lie. I want you to lie. Go ahead and tell a big fat lie, because I'm going to expose you on your lie. You can't keep lying. It's swarming on you. You can't get on top of it. You can say, oh, we don't have any assaults. There's ways to prove how many assaults you had. There's ways to prove how many deaths. Again, we can go to the medical examiner. They had to. So
you can go to the local hospitals.
As you say, attachment H's, every facility for incidents on like inmate on inmate or inmate on staff, there's an attachment H that is forwarded up for every facility. It's a report that the wardens have to send on up. So even just asking that for a specific facility for a specific time frame, that would give you the information you need.
And Julie, they'll go back and change. I've got a person right now that has already come forward and ready to testify on how they changed the Prius, how that they went in and actually had them change and backdate Prius. And so I've got two people that have come and said that. And again, Director.
Can I ask what they?
Well, why would I tell you I'm doing it?
What was the benefit of backdating it? What was the benefit? What was the reasoning for it?
Because it was a pre-audit and they're getting ready for the audit. So they're going through all of that. And so what they're doing is oh, no, this won't pass. Okay, backdate that, change it. So they change the report and they backdate it. That's what's been reported. And again, I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying I got two people who's saying it's happening. And again, they seem pretty credible. And so, should it be investigated? And that's what I'm saying. I don't put anything past them. They got sued for covering up on one already lost $1 million on a lawsuit that was not the guy dying. It was they're covering up the medical stuff. My understanding is what that was. So, yeah, I'm like Bob. I don't trust anything that they put out. But, as Reagan said, he said trust and verify. I say, JJ says, don't trust and verify. So
well, JJ, I think you'll like this. We got a report that the incident report on the 911 call. Know who it is that made that 911 call.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this. The director came in at a tough time. It was a tough time.
Absolutely.
But he's done nothing to improve it. We went backwards with him. He had no experience in this. And it's just awful. It's awful what's going on, because we have a right and obligation in the state of Oklahoma to keep that inmate safe and keep the working environment safe. That's our responsibility.
Bob, I agree. I 100% agree that he came in at a terrible, terrible time, had a lot on his plate. But let me ask you this. If I went and pulled just Joe Blow off the street, Joe Blow, who don't know nothing, old Joe, just pull him off the street, and I say, let's set up a prison. We're going to buy a prison. Let's set up a prison. Do you think Joe Blow off the street would go, you think we ought to get that kitchen ready? You think we might ought to have some food? Can I get a witness, Julie? What do you think about that? Would old Joe Blow know that? Can
we make sure we have trash services?
And then
we don't have maggots and flies everywhere.
Yeah, and then when they don't do it and they go, oh, we forgot about that little deal. Then, oh, hey, we don't want to hear your problems. Just go down there and get them straight. Keep your mouth shut and go down there. Yeah, we'll let you come up here and tell us. Not really. You know what I'm saying? He's brought a bunch of his problems on. He has not been truthful with how much. If I had inherited that mess, I would have went out immediately and go, look at the mess I've inherited, and now here's what we're going to do to change it. He's maintained the secrecy, the cloaking, and he's lied, and he continues to lie. And again, he is over his head. And to give himself a $90,000 raise and keep bonuses from people. And Bob, I done a little research on that little evaluation process.
Yeah.
What I am told is that, yes, because he come back and said, oh, we've had this adopted since 2019 and all that. Well, it turned out that they did get it. That is true. He is not lying on that. But what I have learned is they were doing a pilot project at a couple of institutions that it was not working well, that it was not doing well, so it took a little extended time. That they actually put this statewide is what I'm told. Now I'm just kind of going off what I hear. So I was told they put it in June, somewhere June, July. But what I was told, they didn't go back and do an initial evaluation. So when you do an evaluation, you start with the initial evaluation to say, this is where you're at. Then you do a 6-month follow-up, so that you know by the time the year is that we've told you, here's where you're at, here's what you're doing, here's where we expect you to be. That's what's supposed to be happening. They based all of these raises, bonuses, on this evaluation process, in which they didn't start it right, in which they weren't even to the 6th month. They weren't even at this midpoint, and they gave all of these saying, oh, you didn't do on the evaluation. This is evaluation. If you want to talk about the biggest stinking lie, there you go. And then give yourself a $90,000 raise and deny these people who are working 3, 4, 5 jobs. Wow. I mean, wow, that's ugly.
Working overtime every day, not to spend time with their family. Hey, on this 911 report, I just got the incident report on that. But you know what? You never heard that from DOC. They never brought it up. I was talking to another law enforcement officer the other day, and I was talking about, he's asking about, is it true about all these things that's going on in the prison? I said, yeah. And I told him about the deal in Lawton and about being stabbed. He said, well, I never heard anything about that. Never got anything in writing on that. Because they don't let it out. But what is the reason that you don't want to let people know this is a deadgum dangerous place instead of just saying it? Well, it's a dangerous place, but you're doing nothing to solve it.
If you said it out loud, there'd be accountability. If you said it out loud, you'd have to have an action plan of how you're going to fix it. If you say it out loud, if you say it out loud, it's real. It's
good observation. But
JJ, I was going to go back to you when you're talking about calibration, and I as a supervisor did the first round when they were supposed to have the initial calibration. It was the biggest disaster ever. We were told you have to have it done or you'll be disciplined. You'll have to have this done. You'll be disciplined if you don't. We rushed. There wasn't any real directions on it. We did it. And as soon as it was submitted, we got emails back from HR stating, stop what you're doing. No, seriously, stop what you're doing. Don't worry about it anymore.
Well,
because it was such a disaster. They had so many problems. But also, I want to say there was a staff member who did not get the raise because she was out on workman's comp. She got hurt at the Hinton prison. And because they did their calibration in June, she was still out on workman's comp. She didn't receive it, even though she was on workman's comp because of what she did down at Hinton.
Right.
But they said it's fair. It's fair.
Yeah, she gets hurt doing the job. And how do you reward her for being there and getting hurt? Oh, we're not going to give you a bonus. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, they got real problems there, Julie. And again, they're lying on that. They can put the lipstick on the pig. Like Bob said, it's still a pig,
Well, we got a few minutes. Can you cut any more bills that we're gonna look at?
Bob, right now, I did file a shell bill to look at getting a raise. I just don't know if I can get anybody. I am tapped.
Well, everybody's getting that 9% raise coming out. That's statewide.
I think that one's probably, so you're going to get a raise of 9%, which is a pretty big raise. And so I don't think that we can get that one thrown in there. But Bob, I was thinking that bill we were talking about the violence, that I could probably gut that bill because that one, is DOC, and I could gut that and put that other bill in there. And I think that would be great if we could get that done. And
we can just go take a step at a time and try to protect the people inside that prison.
Right.
Because we never really thought about it because it has never been this bad. And what's even worse, as bad as it is, they want to say it's not bad.
Well, Bob, that's what shocks me is that, the other day, of course, they were trying to belittle me and badmouth me, which ain't do. But they come out and said, well, it's prison and you got to expect these things. And Bob, you know, I mean, I've worked in around prison all life. Like I said, you do expect things, and we have seen murders and we have seen rape. But my gosh, when I was there, if you saw one, it was a big deal. But if you see one a month at one prison, and you're seeing stabbings at 26 and 6 months at another one at 38, and you know, I mean, these are daily events now. You know what? That's unacceptable. That's not isolated.
Well, JJ, we'll have to shut it down right now. But here's the thing: what says it all to me is when an inmate picks up his cell phone that everybody has, because they can't control the cell phones. They admit they can't control it because they don't have people to do it with. But when he can call 911 and ask for help, that's going a long ways. That's just that's actually unheard of.
Unheard of.
But that shows you just how dangerous it is. Well, hey, thank you guys both. We appreciate you and look forward to next week. I'm going to tell you right now, next week you don't want to miss us because we're going to have a huge announcement. It's going to change the scope of what's going on, and something's got to give and something's got to happen. And we can't keep on because we can't expect them to do anything. They're not going to do anything because they don't think they've done anything wrong.
They know they have, Bob, but they ain't going to admit it.
Well, Julie, go ahead and say something.
JJ, don't you have something on Sundays that you wanted to talk about real quick?
Yeah, we've got an elephant in the room. And again, I just want to give a shout out if y'all want to watch something that we're always talking about in Oklahoma, what nobody else wants to talk about. This week, we're going to talk about furries, people who pretend to be animals. Kids are going to schools. They're putting litter boxes in the classrooms. Insane.